Charles Nenner is a cycle forecaster at Charles Nenner Research Center, and he joins us now. Thank you so much, Charles, for coming in the studio. Now, in terms of News Corp, if we look at the cycles, of course, the share price has moved a lot because of the news. But on a longer-term cycle forecasting, what's the trend that you can see there?
Well, our work shows that there is a low the beginning of August, the price of the stock. But there's only a major low late in 2012. So you could have a bounce in the stock starting the first days of August, but no major low until next year.
So I don't know if we can actually bring a chart up for you, Charles, in terms of, are we going to stay around this price? You say a little bit of a bounce back in August?
No, we could go down to $15.
And this is
That's a price target for the beginning of August.
All right, Charles, let me move it on to actually what we're expecting in terms of the European debt crisis, because it seems that, no matter what happens, no matter how much the situation is very difficult, a lot of the EU governments can't agree on a solution, and there is no real solution in sight apart from a default. Again, the cycle that you look at, what does it mean for stocks in general, and I guess, the perception of risk?
Well, why they cannot get their act together is because they have no historical understanding. We had the same situation in the 80s. The American banks were very weak like European banks now, and there was a crisis in South America. But there was a clever guy, BRADY, maybe you remember he made the BRADY bonds.
BRADY bonds.
And they did it totally opposite from what they're doing now in Europe. So they're going to fail totally in Europe. The only discussion is it an organized bankruptcy? Or is it a chaos? I think it's going to end in a chaos. I think they're doing it the wrong way. By the way, the person who was then in charge of the crisis in Mexico, for instance, was a guy named Carstens. He has so much knowledge that I would advise that people take him as the head of the bank, of the European Bank and the IMF, because he knows how to deal with it. But the way they do it now is just going to end in failure.
Yeah, and actually Mr. Kostner, of course, didn't get the top job at the IMF, but in terms of also BRADY bonds, it is something that has been discussed in Europe, but that has never been backed by all the governments.
Right.
Again, this is something that means disaster going forward. Are we going to have what you call chaos and therefore default in which we don't understand the consequences?
We don't understand the consequences. Actually, has never happened before that countries go in bankruptcy. I think it's going to be a total chaos.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be much worse than people think.
And what does it mean for your graphs and your predictions in terms of stock prices, Charles?
Well, you know that I made this prediction of the Dow's going to 5,000.
Yeah.
I made the prediction based on wars, because as you maybe remember, I do cycles on war and peace. Yeah. And in 2013, I see the beginning of a major war. So this, together with the American economy, who's going in deflation still, I believe, we're going to have a major crisis on our hands.
Charles, the Dow Jones hasn't touched 5,000. Will it still? Do you still believe that it will at some point?
Still will.
But when?
In about 3 years or so.